All right, so we're gonna work on our lavender. So for this one, I actually started at the bottom, and it is just, again, a satin stitch. So I just started from the center, and you work on each petaled section individually. So just one straight stitch down the center. And then just the same concept as every other pretty much satin stitch we've done. It's my tail coming through. So you can tuck it in behind. I like to do a little bit of putting it in behind. For this one, I wanted all of you don't need a ton of stitches for each of these little petals, so I didn't need to do too much, but I did kind of tuck it in a little bit. Just since I did about probably five stitches per little petal. So I did the second stitch short, and then the last side stitch was a nice long one all the way down again. And the same thing over here. And for this one, I actually did quite a bit of fluffing. I wanted to have like some textures to it. So once I finished each petal, I fluffed it up to give it that shape. And you don't have to keep the tension loose on the stitches to get that. So don't worry about keeping your like stitches looser than you would normally stitch. Stitch normally. Stitch till the tension is pulled out, and then that little fluff is just you pulling any extra slack from the back to the front, and then it just creates this nice little rounded shape. If you leave it extra slack, you're going to make it too loose, so don't worry about doing that. Just stitch normally. So I started on the outside petals and just layered them. The nice thing about this one is because your inside ones, you won't see the black line anyways, because they're going to be covered by the other the interior ones. You don't have to worry as much about the lines except for the outside. So that's kind of a nice treat. It's a little less finicky. It's also a nice dark color, so oops, I got a little knot. So if you get a knot like this, which we haven't had many of yet, you're just gonna pull it out and just kind of wiggle from the bottom until it comes undone. It's not actually a knot, it's just the thread twisted to create what seems like a little knot. So so you should be able to put your needle like through the knot and pull it out, like untangle it. Especially if you haven't pulled too tight. If you pull and make the like knot really tight, it's harder to get it out. So if you feel a knot starting, ease up, and then instead of pulling harder, if that makes sense. Okay, so you can kind of fluff them up as you go. And then just start back at the outside on the next layer, and then I moved my way to the inside again. So, and getting your needle like right in there. But yeah, I just worked my way around in rows. So I'll do this one, that one, and then come back in. So where you're coming up to the last one, I'm actually just going to kind of come in, overlap it a little bit, and just butt it up to that last one. Give it that little fluff. So the one in the center, I think I'm short a stitch, so it just looks like it's, and so that stitch will come over, actually go over the other one a little bit, which is good. Just creates that like overlapping look. So coming kind of in between there to just tuck it in. I'll do that maybe for the first 2 stitches. And then these outside ones, I'll just kind of try to come up to where the bottom, or the top of the bottom one is. And like I've often said, is less is more. So like I went back in and just added that stitch because I felt like it was still needed. If you overload some of the areas and then you can't get, you can't just take one stitch out. So I like to do, if I think I'm close or I'm like on the, not quite sure if I've done enough stitches, I will stop and then come back if I think it'll look better with a little bit more. Okay, so we've got quite a few of these little petals done. I think you guys get the gist of it. I did try working from the top to the bottom or versus working from the bottom to the top, and I felt like it was easier to layer them properly working from the top to the, or from the bottom up. So you can do it however you'd like, but this is from my trial and error. You get a better layering, and they look a little bit like more overlapping by doing it from the bottom up. Okay, so keeping up with your fluffing, just be careful because obviously you can snag them if you're not. But just a little needle run underneath. So I just wanted to show you guys as I'm butting up to the one below, I'm just kind of coming in right at the top of it, sort of through the same hole, if not just right next to it, just so that there isn't a gap between them, so it kind of looks seamless. Okay, and then yeah, well, sorry, we will move on to our leaves and stems. All right, so we're gonna do our split stitch, which I'm gonna sound like a broken record when I say you can leave all of your greenery until the end and do it all at once, but I'm just gonna do the tutorial here. I know I sound like a broken record. Okay, so split stitch, we're gonna make 1 stitch forward, and then you're gonna come up a stitch length from the back, forward 1 stitch, and then stitch backwards and split your strand in half, pushing through that first stitch. And just repeating that pattern, forward 1 stitch length, coming back and splitting the stitches. So you're splitting it pretty much in half. And we're going all the way. I'm just going to do this 1 stem, and then we'll do our little leaf. Just a little itty bitty guy. Okay, and then for the end there on my last one, I came forward, I came up here and then split back. For this one, I came up through the actual thread and split it in half that way. So you can do either or. Okay, and then for our little leaf, I'm gonna come up about, oh, sorry, that's a mistake. I'm gonna come up from the top, from the very tip, and then I'm gonna come down about 1/2 to 3/4 of the way. And then for your little leaf stitches, which is what we're doing here, you could do just a satin stitch, but I always do a leaf stitch because it creates kind of like that vein or bone down the middle. So you're gonna come down about 1 needle's width. So just below the middle stitch and stitch kind of straight down the center. And then on the other side, you're gonna do the same thing and you can meet up with that first side stitch. So you're creating kind of like a little diagonal stitch down the center. And this is a really small leaf stitch, so it's gonna create like the tiniest one. I'm actually just gonna do the next one right down to the stem, so all the way to the bottom. And then again, meeting up with the next one. And then for your side stitches, because you've already hit the center point, I'm just gonna go in right beside it along the stem. And then the same thing here. And then I'll be done. So right in on the edge. And then on this side, we're gonna do the same thing. And this side almost looks like based on the shape, I'll only need 1 stitch to cover. So straight down. And we're finished. You've created your teeniest, tiniest little leaf. And so next up, we're gonna work on our cosmos, which is, again, the same satin stitch flower technique.